Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're back with another one, and this is Upper Kara 12. So we have the same affixes we have from the Lower Kara 11. If you guys haven't seen that, I would really recommend watching that first. Some of the things we talked about in that video are going to be transferred over to discussing in this video. I mentioned a lot of things involving the difficulty in that video, and that is not going to be a difference here, that is for sure. This place is easily the hardest 5-man I've ever done in my entire life. This specific plus 12 run, which was the same affixes as on the 11, Tyrannical, Volcanic, and Raging. Easily the hardest thing I've ever done in a 5-man setting before in my entire life. And that is saying something, man. This is really insane. We spent an hour and 37 minutes in here. I've cut it down to obviously 33 minutes, so that means removing a lot of wipes. The only real bosses we had trouble with were the first and the last. That's Curator and this trash boss as well. People don't know how to fucking interrupt. The trash was not remarkably difficult, but let's talk about the bosses. So, yeah, Curator gives us fits, and what's the guy's name? Mazarum, the last boss, whatever that dude's name is. He is impossible, man. I cannot even believe how difficult this is on Tyrannical. It's absolutely insane. So once again, we'll talk about the same things we talked about last video. Mob count, your difficulty, like how you're finding the difficulty, what affixes you've done it as, and maybe ways to do things a little bit differently. So those are the 4 things, just like the last video, to respond to. If you guys are interested in leaving a comment, I would very much appreciate doing so. First things first is mob count. We immediately pull another one of these robots here, even though you can skip it. I don't know exactly how much mob count it gives off the top of my head. You'll see here shortly, but regardless, it doesn't need to happen. There's no way. We were very, very optimistic. No, very, very cautious, I guess is what I mean to say, about the actual mob count. We were kind of concerned with it because we knew at the end, we were basically worried if, the main thing we were worried about is if chess gave mob count, and it does. It gives, from what we can tell, 7% from killing the king. So that's a big number there. That's the most mob count of the entire dungeon. We thought maybe it wouldn't give any mob count, and then we'd be in trouble because we'd basically be screwed. I don't know what we would even do. I'm really not sure what happens in these types of dungeons if you get so far and you don't have the mob count. Is it over? You know what I mean? If you kill the last boss and you don't have the mob count in here, what happens? That's it, right? Because you can't go back to where there would be mobs. But anyway, I don't know how you would not have the mob count here. This is another one, just like Lower Kara, where I honestly think it's impossible to not get the mob count. I don't know if there's going to be any clever ways to get exact mob count either, because there's not a lot of stuff that you can skip, and even the stuff that you can skip is very, very... Yeah, like, you can't skip anything in here. Basically, everything we pulled so far has to be pulled, right? You can skip one of the robots. You can't skip the guy at the door here because, you know, you have to go into the room to kill the next set of mobs. You can't skip these mobs because you're never going to be able to kill them. You have to fight Curator, you know what I mean? You can't do the room with them in there. So the only thing you've been able to skip so far is one robot, which we didn't. We could have skipped without any type of invis. And then maybe those 2 or 3 ghosts or whatever they were. I don't think you'd be able to invis all 3 of them. So far, you basically are stuck doing this exact same thing. Now, I could already see, as you saw from the first trash pack we pulled, and then this one as well, we are taking a lot of damage. And these mobs, you know, obviously are raging as well, but... yeah, it's not even fortified week, guys, so this is a scary, scary, scary dungeon, man. I am not looking forward to this dungeon. A lot of people have been talking about how this dungeon has some of the best rewards from any 5-man ever. I also, and I think you're right about that. You know, Shade of Medivh and the last boss and even to some degree Curator have some of the best drops off any 5-man boss ever. And it's really going to be an enticing thing to come and do this, and especially, you know, sub 10, but... Regardless, man, doing this on a plus 12 has given me a healthy appreciation for the difficulty of this game. And so once again, if anybody has done, you know, plus 10s, 11, 12, 13s, etc. at this point, please let me know what how you find the difficulty. Like, I haven't really done like a plus 20 or nothing like that prior, so I don't really know where these new, you know, this new difficulty is stacking up. But there's a little interesting trick there that Arcane Barrage won't hit you if you're in line of sight, so yeah, if you're really struggling with this and you can't get the shield down fast enough, just have a few people line of sighted or something if possible. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah, the trash here is really a pain in the ass. You have to pull a lot of it to get it done. And now it's time for Curator. So yeah, I'm gonna cut out about 5 wipes on here. As you can see, the timer. I mean, we've almost half the timer is gone now. We still haven't killed Curator. So we are not going to be 3-chesting this, guys. We do not get any chests. Like I said, an hour and a half in here obviously does not meet the timer. But the reason this fight is so hard is because those orbs, those like splashes of lightning he throws out, they nearly one-shot us. They do such an incredible amount of damage. It's absolutely insane. On top of that, these adds have a lot of friggin' health on plus 12 volcanic, or plus 12 tyrannical. It's absolutely insane how long it takes us to kill these adds. So we're basically getting almost, look at how little health we've taken off already. You know what I mean? So we're basically getting almost no damage to the boss. The whole time the main phase is happening, we're getting almost no damage. And all I can tell you is, luckily, I have the burst healing I have, because if I had to do this under geared or without like land hands and, you know, big holy shot crits, I don't know how I would do it. So you're going to see immediately, I still have damage talents, which is just retarded. I don't ever do any damage in this dungeon. This place is so freaking unforgiving that I basically can't do damage. The meager amount of damage I'm bringing, I could have easily done the same amount without these talents. So even right now, I'm trying to get a little bit in. This is probably the only place where it would have been useful, but I had to use wings to actually heal. So I'm basically not doing, I mean, I'm doing less damage than the bear tank. You know what I mean? That's sad. That's a sad thing to say. So yeah, unfortunately, if I had a good, you know, if I got to pot properly, if I even, I don't know, I didn't even pot this pull. But if I actually got to wings and use a pot there with Bloodlust, that boss would have been dead by now. But the major issue we also encountered here was that it was taking us so long to kill the boss that the whole room was filling up. And the first few pulls that we had that were really close right to the end, the whole room was filled up. So what you really need to do is the adaptive conservative strategy, where you just keep people in a line and only move when the electricity comes out. We had people running all around constantly before in earlier pulls, and it was making it near impossible to actually complete the fight. But that time, you see, we have good damage. Everybody's doing very good damage, frankly, and we're still struggling with this place, so it's pretty insane. Now, the trash here, once again, there's a lot, you know, these bats that are up in the air, they can be taunted down, and I don't know if they're actually skippable or if they give mob count. I know they're skippable, but I don't know if you need them for mob count, you know, if you could skip them, if they give mob count, I don't even know. So I try to take a look here as it happens, but once again, I can't really tell myself, so... this guy, I suppose you could skip as well if you're really careful about it. You don't even need to Invisibot. You probably could have just ran around the left side, but I don't know. We didn't want to do anything like that, obviously, because we knew we were going to wipe multiple times. The next boss coming up is the Shade of Medivh fight. It's a very, very dangerous fight on this difficulty, but it's probably one of the easier in all of these that we've done, all 8 bosses that I've done so far in here. It's not too difficult. The only thing is the Flame Wreath. That thing I think is just frankly bugged. The amount of times I've wiped to that where everybody was standing still, I just don't really understand it. So if anybody can tell me a little bit more about ways that they think they've done Flame Wreath properly but still wiped to it and learned from it, let me know. I know there's going to be people who are like, lol, you just don't move, retard. And it's like, yes, I'm aware of that. But for some reason, when it goes out, everybody just dies immediately. And I think what's happening is, like, if you overlap them or something, I don't know. It's really a weird thing. I've wiped to this so many times, even on back in the day in Zero, and I just don't actually know why it's happening. I think there's got to be something that's working differently than I expect. But watch this. This is a good little example of why this place sucks. Okay, watch this. Charges over, one-shots the Warlock. Okay, so there you go. That's not even on Fortified, guys. That's not in any way affected. He's obviously raging, but with Fortified, that mob is going to hit even harder. So it's a scary thing, man. This dungeon is scary as hell, and it's really insane how much more difficult this is than anything else. Now, granted, of course, plus 12, we're probably just at the gear cutoff for this. Like, I don't know. Like I said, you guys tell me, do you think 12 is easy, hard? You think it's, where was it previously? Maybe like plus 18, something like that. You guys have to let me know. But we basically had, I don't know, if we didn't wipe for like a half hour on Curator, we might have had a chance at this, but Vizdoom is just absolutely insane, and it seems so impossible to actually one-shot it on these affixes, so I will talk about that when we get to it. But anyway, Shade of a Ram, the one thing, or Shade of Medivh, the one thing we definitely needed to learn was never to let an ice block get off. If any ice block gets off, it's a pretty much wipe, because not only are you losing damage for a few seconds, if not longer, but the fire debuff that is required to get the person out of the ice block does a lot of damage. As you see there, it's on the tank, and the tank is getting hit somewhat hard, and he's a bear druid, right? So it's going to go on Diabolical there. Watch the amount of damage. Well, he's got an absorb shield on, so I guess that doesn't count. But regardless, you'll see it a few times. Now it's on Pride there. So you'll see how much damage he's actually taking from it. There you go. You see how much he's taking from that per tick? That's a sizable number there, right, guys? So you really do, if there's a way to interrupt every single mechanic, you should do it. If there's a way to interrupt every single ice block, you have to do that. If there's a way to interrupt every single fire mechanic, you should do that. The one that you should probably let through is the arcane one. It's only on the tank, so unless you're really unconfident with your tank, that should be something he can mitigate easily. But luckily, we get an easy early one. This is the easiest of the 3 special abilities. You can just jump. I'm jumping way too often. I should be doing way more healing and DPS. You only have to jump every few seconds, but of course, I'm just spamming jumping, as are a few others, just to be safe. So then the next one we get is the Arcane Birds. But as you can see here, the boss is dying quite slowly. You know, everybody's playing very conservative, but our DPS is not really that bad, but we're immediately going to go into the Arcane Birds. So this one is tough. This was the hardest one. Obviously, the Flame Wreath can wipe you 100%, but if you don't wipe the Flame Wreath, it's the easiest one, but it's the hardest one, like, on average, you know? So this one is probably the hardest per damage, though. Like, you actually have to heal this up, and it is quite substantial amount. I get hit by the Volcanic there because I'm struggling to keep everyone alive. But once again, I have healing talents I have DPS talents in a dungeon where I'm basically not doing any DPS. As you see this one, I might as well not even be a damage deal. Like, these talents are useless. So, you know, a few tiers like Rule of Law and whatever the name of the talent is, Bestow Faith. These talents would have been so useful for this dungeon. It would have helped out a lot in a lot of these fights, and I just don't have them. And also Devo Aura, you know, I'm barely getting any use out of it. I'm reducing some damage on myself occasionally, but in general, I'm never actually in melee range because I'm not damaging anything. And, you know, at best, I'm reducing a few % of damage here and there. So yeah, I really did not play this one very well in terms of talents. I wish there's a way you could change talents, but this is honestly the first situation I've ever been in where I felt like I absolutely needed to change talents. So, yeah, the Flame Wreath is out now. It's only on 2 people, right? Is that how it's supposed to be? I thought it was supposed to be on more players than that, but regardless, everybody's just standing still. Nobody's moving from anything. We're getting hit by Volcanic constantly, and it's like, just fuck it. Eat the Volcanic. I'm going to bubble there, and that's pretty much the only reason I survive. And that is that. Just get it done. Flame Wreath over. Now the boss is over. So that's awesome. Honestly, not one of the, like, these next 2 the 2 middle bosses are very easy compared to the first one. But Vizdoom is insane. So, I don't know. You're going to jump down. Now, once again, there's a lot of mobs that you can get and that you can skip down here. You can pretty much skip it all. I mean, the book's wandering around by the lava, or the mana worm. You probably could avoid pulling it. It's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit close, and it's a larger mob. So sometimes you'll accidentally grab it. But in general, you can pretty much just pull this rat and then go over to the spider by the mana worm and get that. So that's another thing to consider for actual mob count. So once again, if you guys have done the dungeon before, tell me what you guys are doing for mob count. Especially if you've done it on a higher difficulty, you can let me know exactly when and where your mob count was, you know, causing problems. I'd love to hear some people who have done it on Tyrannical as well, or on Fortified as well. I think this is going to be another dungeon. So this dungeon, I think, gets easier when it's not fortified, or when it is fortified, sorry. When it's fortified, the trash can be very dangerous, but I think the lower half is way more difficult on Fortified than it is Tyrannical. The trash, and then, of course, if you have teaming or skittish or anything that makes trash harder, that trash is absolutely insane. There is a lot of trash in that dungeon, man. But in this half of the dungeon, there's not much trash. It's not nearly as much. It's a lot more of boss damage, right? So this place is way harder on Tyrannical, whereas that place, I feel, I haven't done it yet, obviously, is way harder on Fortified. So hopefully we get some footage of that in the coming weeks. We'll get some, you know, some looks at that to compare it to. But yeah, we're just going to kill the rats here. The rat is doing quite a lot of damage to the tank here. I've pretty much given up healing him, and I'm just going to do some damage, get this mob dead, and let him die. Which probably was kind of dumb, but I just wanted to make sure that rat wall was no factor. So, yeah, let's get him rezzed up. Now, we are going to pull the stuff because everybody's kind of panicking about mob count, like I said. We don't really know what we're actually going to get from the end of the dungeon, but looking back, obviously, we did not need to pull that book. So, we are going to get it. It's just a book. Now, I know a lot of you guys can't read, as have demonstrated in the comment section of the, some of the videos I made, especially the tier list. A lot of people who can't read, so it's going to be difficult for some of you guys to kill this book. No, I'm just kidding. Just kill it. He does a Curse of Doom, which I can just dispel. I don't even know what that does. But regardless, this spider is actually the dangerous one. I get baited. I don't even know what I dispel, but I get baited into dispelling something that is not the Leech Life. And if you guys who have played Pokemon know, Leech Life can be particularly painful when it's super effective. And boy, is it super effective. Oh yeah, I dispelled the web. And is it on a pet? No, it's on Diabolical himself, but the pet is web too. So I don't have the Leech Life dispelled. So the mob is like healing up more than we're dealing, right? So I have to actually dispel it. So anyway, yeah, there you go. That's a little trick. Probably going to get even worse on Fortified Weeks, but regardless, just don't be an idiot like me. You know, bug type is still a valid type, even though some bugs are really weak. You know, getting a spider like that with a strong, super effective Leech Life is going to be difficult. So anyway, we're going to go pretty much full ham here. We're going to, I think we lost here. Yeah, I think we do. So this boss is another one that's very easy and made a lot, just like Curator and of course, Maiden as well, made much easier with more damage. The more times you have to deal with these mechanics, the much harder they become. Less coverage you have for CDs. So I really should have potted, and I should have Old War potted and used like a set of CDs, wings, you know what I mean? I could have done a lot of damage here. I still have damage talents, don't forget. So even without wings and just a blue pot, I'm still doing pretty good damage, but regardless, it could actually make the fight a lot faster. We've done a lot of damage to the boss in a short period of time, so this is one I was worried about coming in here because typically I find this boss to be kind of a pain in Zero. People don't really know how to do the mechanics, and they'll get way too many of these orbs and then not clear the debuff. But look at how much damage this debuff is doing. It is slaughtering them, and pretty much the only reason I'm able to survive all of this is because of wings. But I think if we played it a little bit more conservatively with CD usage, like basically if the same damage happened and I just devoed instead, I probably could have kept everyone up and the boss would probably be dead by now. He's only at 25%. All we would have had to do was weather that storm, and then now the boss would have been dead if I bursted on the pull. You know, if I did a million bursts on the pull, right, the boss would be dead, surely. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a trade-off. This is the one that I definitely wish I actually did more damage on, and you know, I'm glad that I kept the talents for if I did that. But unfortunately, I just basically I'm playing like a little girl right now. Sorry if there's any small children, small girls out there, but you guys are very timid and you don't approach things head on very often, so it's an easy comparison for how I'm playing right now. I kind of just want to make sure we all survive and don't worry about anything else, and of course that is the healer's role, but yeah, could have made the fight a lot easier. Regardless, we have, what's that, 6 minutes left basically for a final completion of this boss here. I don't think we're even going to get to him in that time. So yeah, there's once again more mobs here to the left. There's only really 2 more packs of mobs here, but it does depend on the bats up in the coming corridor here. If you can pull those and get mob count from them, which I didn't notice, maybe you guys did watching earlier. Regardless, if you get mob count from them, then you're golden no matter what, I suppose. But if you can't, then you're probably in trouble here. I don't really know what's going to happen mob count wise, like I said, guys. I don't really know what you can and can't skip. Maybe the hallway is a good place to invis. Like, it's not a bad idea, right? If you can skip all of that nonsense, it's going to save a lot of time, first of all, because those mobs are quite a pain. They'll try to knock you around, or they summon the one caster summons that imp, and then, you know, the bats are constantly pelting you down, so if there was one thing to skip, that wouldn't be a bad option, but it probably doesn't skip much mob count. So it's probably better time-wise, like it's a time-efficient skip, but it's not a very mob count efficient skip. So I don't know. You guys will have to let me know. I don't really know about stuff like this. This is the kind of stuff that confuses me when you get the Mythic Plus model, right? Like, you're so engrossed with the timer that you worry about mob count, and the mob count is very difficult to min-max when everything's not giving a 1. You know, if it gives like 0.5 or 2 or stuff like that, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out. That was kind of my preference. I really preferred the mob count system in challenge modes, where it was just this mob gives 1, that's that, you know what I mean? Rare occasion, I think there was a mob that gave 2, but I honestly think those types of things were bugs. So anyway, now that it's a bar, it's a little bit harder to maximize. So regardless, we're going to end up pulling all of this trash. It's quite difficult, but we just get it done. Just don't get knocked off the platform here or die to the barrages from the bats. The bats surprisingly do a good amount of damage. In fact, all of the incidental damage in this dungeon, trash-wise, start to like from the bottom up to the top, is all incredibly dangerous. It does way more damage than you expect, and we're only on, like I said, Tyrannical week, so I could only imagine what some of this trash is going to be like when it's teaming, when it's bolstering, when it's fortified. You know, these things are going to be very dangerous. I can't imagine what this place looks like at all with teaming. I mean, if there's 2 of these guys, oh boy, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let's just get him up here. We're going to pull him up here. Anula's going to try to pull him up here, but that doesn't work very well for some reason. So I grabbed one of the mobs thinking, let's see the mob count, but we're already well over the mob count. So that was silly. Unfortunately, there's no way to actually see if things give mob count when you're at the mob count. But we did speak, I think we asked in the guild chat, right? People are talking about that now. We did ask another group who did this place if they got mob count from chess. Although I'm frankly not sure how they would know either. I really don't know how you would get to this point under mob count unless you were really, really trying. So yeah, anyway, people are claiming it gives 7%. If you guys can refute that, please do. I would love to hear it. But now I get hit by something here, and I don't really know what it is. So let's watch this. I die. I know that. I just don't know what I died to. It must be one of these mechanics in the ground. Yeah, is that tile's got a mechanic on it? It doesn't look like it. But I died. So anyway, yeah, we're going to have to run back. It's quite an extensive run back once again. Same problem I have with the previous half of the dungeon, but at least it's not as bad as it could be. I mean, it could be so bad that you spawn a Curator, right? That would have been even worse. You have to jump down the rabbit hole thing again. Obviously, you can't do that. I don't think the event can happen twice, but like where you shrink and then increase in size. I don't think that could happen twice, but regardless, yeah, it is a long-ass run back, and it's going to suck really bad when we're talking about the last boss. I mean, look how long we threw the dungeon, right? Yeah, we're only like, you know, a half hour, basically 40 minutes into this dungeon, and we still have another hour of footage. I'm talking about a full hour on the last boss. We're talking about, I'm pretty sure, like 20-some wipes. That was basically a mythic raid boss. So I'm going to have 2 pulls of it when we get there. We're just going to finish up chess. Obviously, nothing to comment on, really. Just make sure you don't die to the king or anything. One little thing that I don't know if our tank actually knew, the king melees. Once he's done with his mechanics, he will melee. So it's kind of funny, actually. Like, yeah, he does. I guess he swings whenever you're close to him either way. So when he's all that we're attacking, all of us are there, and Anula just runs off, and then Effective just gets 1 shot. So it's kind of silly. Like, I mean, it's a bit embarrassing. Watch this. I think it happens here very shortly. It's kind of funny, actually, to watch. But, yeah, anyway, just make sure your tank is actually in melee range. Because the mob is not moving, and he is still going to try to melee. So as soon as his stun is up, which I think is only about 5 or 10% left of his health. So watch this. Watch Anula. He just runs away, and I don't really know where he's going, but clank, clank, dead. 2 swings, hashtag see ya. It's like, okay, that's not what you want to do. But anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. We had less than a minute left when we get to the boss, so obviously we're not beating this. But yeah, this boss is a long fight, especially on Tyrannical. It's multiple minutes, and it's got a lot of transitions and a lot of nonsense going on it. So we found it very, very difficult to maximize CDs. Very, very difficult to know when and where to use CDs. Basically, what we learned, I think, was just use CDs on the pull. You know what I mean? The first phase is actually way more dangerous than it seems. The Disintegrate Beam charges up like near instantly, I think. I don't know. It seems that way. I don't know if that's actually what's happening. If you guys know, let me know. But the Disintegrate Beam seems to charge up instantly. So if it happens the same time the balls are out, like we're going to dispel the orbs or let them expire, whichever you do, and then their orbs are out, but you're pretty much going to get hit by the Disintegrate Beam in phase 1, so you can get knocked back into the orbs, and that's a wipe. Basically, any 2 sources of damage on this fight, plus 12 on Tyrannical, is a death, a guaranteed death. And this is why we wipe for over an hour, because we spend so much time on these mechanics that, you know, on normal, on 0, it just doesn't do anything, really. Or even if it does, it's not enough to cause a death. That when these things time out like this, you just struggle to survive them. You literally don't, you know what I mean? And I have healing talents that are absolutely terrible, right? I don't have good throughput talents. I have DPS talents, and I'm basically not doing any DPS. And on top of that, all the regular mechanics that you're supposed to deal with really suck. So as you see there, we talked about this heavily. I let the Disintegrate Beam happen instead of dispelling, much to my chagrin, having to heal up that entire debuff, both the tank debuff that can be interrupted and that debuff that can be dispelled, which shoots out the balls. They do a lot of damage on this difficulty, guys. So yeah, try your best, man. I don't know what to tell you. This place is absolute nightmare level, and it's a really scary last boss. All of this downtime, all of this transitioning, it makes it very difficult to actually use CDs effectively. And now watch this. This beam obviously does a lot of damage, but the freaking electricity on the side is godlike. Oh my god, does it do so much damage. So you basically, what people will do, they just run through the electricity on 0 to avoid the knockback. You cannot do this, guys. This electricity, I don't know if it's different because of it's fortified or if it's just like this all the time on 12. It must be because, it must be because of Tyrannical, but regardless, that tank debuff is getting out of control. It's doing so much damage, even though I have my 45-second CD on him. It's just not enough. I mean, it's doing so much damage. So here we go. 2 people have the debuff. We're going to lose Diabolical there, probably to that splash damage. I'm going to dispel one of them, and then the second one's going to go off on Pride of there. But all the while, he's basically not doing damage. He's just standing out there waiting because he knows how difficult it is to actually heal and actually keep everyone else alive around him. So very difficult stuff. Now, we're just going to barely scrape by on this phase. We have no business surviving this. Luckily, we have Battle Res, but some really clutch burst healing. But basically, I found out if I have to use wings in phase 2 with these talents and the gear and the way we're set up, I can't do the fight. There's just way too much damage in phase 3, and the boss still takes quite a while to kill, so we found pretty much any pull where we did not have all 5 players alive going into the Lust, and all of my healing CDs up was usually not possible. The boss just does an enormous amount of damage, and you're probably not able to discern that now, but if I showed you the hour plus of wipes here, guys, you would be surprised. This is a really, really, really insane encounter. So another mistake we made here early is by dispelling or interrupting that early. We should have let that go down to the wire because this phase is fucking nightmare level. So now there are 3 of these orbs out, and it's just like, what do I fucking do? I have no fucking chance here. Everybody is getting their ass kicked, and I don't have wings, so that's that. I do have land hands up, but regardless, we are not basically unkillable at this point. You really need to make better use of the actual, the actual Lust. You need to make better use of not kicking the cast that he does until the very last second on high Tyrannical, and you need to make sure everybody is maximizing their DPS. So it's just a struggle, man. It's just absolute struggle. But once you get things cornered down, it's not so bad. But then he's going to put out 3 of these fucking dispellable debuffs again. Oh, man, this is nightmare level, man. I'm telling you guys right now, when we finally kill this boss, my heart was racing. And you're going to see it live here in a second. You're literally going to see what took us over an hour to do live. And it is unbelievable when we finally get the kill. Panic is just so, I'm so beyond panicked at this point. But once again, want to show you the run back here for real time. Unfortunately, there's no timer on the screen anymore because we're way past it. But you could pause the video at the start there and see the run back. You're going to see just how much time this actually adds to the dungeon. Whereas we die on the platform right by the door. There's some little glitch there that if you immediately release, you'll be at the door. It will not port you all the way back here. I don't know what the glitch, how it entails it, but we had a couple pulls where 1 or 2 of us had that happen to us. We just released and we immediately are at the door there waiting for everyone else, unfortunately. But if you were able to get all 5 people to do it, it would be very, very efficient. So you can just go right back to the fight. But regardless, having to run all the way here is quite an arduous task. It's asking a lot if you ask me. I don't really know why they're doing this, but It's just not. It's just not the way a Mythic Plus should be. When you have this much difficulty in the dungeon and you're still on a timer, you're basically the worst of both worlds here. You know, like long runbacks and classic and TBC were acceptable because the game was expected to take a long time. There was nothing forcing you to complete the dungeon faster or complete the raid faster. The more time you lost was obviously regrettable, less time, you know, maybe more progression lost or frustration gained, but there was no timer or nothing like that. Where now we have dungeons that are much more difficult than anything in that era, and there's a timer. So, you know, we're talking about a plus 12 here where none of us know what we're doing and we're wasting 2-3 minutes each time running back. So we cut out another like 3-4 pulls, as you can see by the in-game clock, and it's time to go again. This is going to be the kill, so we'll try to discuss mechanic by mechanic here, but regardless, it's a very difficult fight. All right, so yeah, just try to get some damage in on the pull. Anything will help because the more time we have to spend in this phase, the worse it is. Now, effective there, the Demon Hunter is going to get the beam that charges on him, so he's just also going to get hit by the blaster. It probably actually helped him out. He was able to avoid having to move too much from that unintentionally, and as you see, Supreme Mobility just moves left to right there and avoids leaving too much of the ground untraversable because of that. Now, Diabolical is going to run all the way to the side there. I don't know if that was the right play, but it does make it so those orbs are nowhere near the group. As you see, only one is anywhere close to the group. So that's a small little idea you could have. I mean, I'm talking about Mythic plus progression here, guys. We spent so much time learning these mechanics that we basically have to do them down to a science to be able to kill this fight. So I'm slow getting into the portal. That's another unfortunate thing. If I was right on that portal, we would have got a much better jump on here. But once again, guys, do not go into the electricity unless you absolutely fucking have to. It's better to eat the knockback than it is to go into that electricity. I'm talking about that electricity doing like multiple percentages of our health at a time here. So yes, very scary. Just let this exact situation happen. Take the knockback and let the boss come to you if you have to. So here we go. This is the pull, the first pull where I don't have to use wings in phase 2, and that makes phase 3 all the more doable. So here we go. Watch it happen. We get an early dispel in the tank because I know the debuff, the dispellable debuff, is not coming again for a little bit. So we have another application. We just got to make sure it gets kicked, and I think we do. And now the debuff is out. I'm going to dispel it on Prida, who is very low. I was going to dispel it on myself, but he was almost dead, so that was a clutch decision made there. If I didn't make that decision, we probably would have lost him. And even though it was the less opportune decision to make, it was the mandatory one. So we're all very comfortable now. The orbs hit nobody, and all we got to do is dodge this nonsense, which is harder than it seems, but we are into phase 3 now. So very good phase 2 after an hour plus progression. It's hard to believe that we actually even killed this, but we finally do. So now it is time for phase 3, which we wiped too many times as well. One of the hardest parts on any boss in any 5-man. These ads are going to do a lot of damage, and they continue spawning. So what you really want to do is get them all up there together. Avoid any damage on the pull, because if you guys don't know, if you stay back there, he's barraging the platform the whole time as well. So you really cannot stay back there and fight these ads. You have to bring them to the boss, cleave it all down. We're going to lust. We're going to crush them. I'll dispel that debuff that's put on by the ads. It's a quite substantial dot on the tank, or anybody who takes a melee, which may not always be the tank. And now we kick the cast, and it's time to go. I'm popping wings, keeping everyone alive, just making sure everyone's topped off for these orbs, which are absolutely brutal. I'm going to dispel myself to make sure that the other two have time to react to it. And now it's time for both of them to dodge it, and it looks like we do. We have wings up still, though, for another few seconds, and that's all we're going to need. The boss is now going to die. I'm going to dispel that debuff off him there just in case. And that's that. With wings, it's easy mode. I can heal everyone up to full in one global. And it's pretty much the only reason we killed that fucking fight, guys. Man, my heart was racing. I'm telling you, some of the best feelings I've ever had in this video game when we finally killed this boss. So let me know what your experiences is. It's a hard fucking place, man. No word a lie. I'm really surprised how difficult this dungeon is on high tyrannical, especially the first week here. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any comments on the things I brought up at the start of the video, like mob count, progression of the dungeon, where the difficulty reigns, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video.